The Squire and the Death Knight. Geoffrey had been the finest swordsman the monastery had seen in a decade, though he rarely allowed himself to think of it. It was the others who whispered it over evening stew, glancing his way with a mix of admiration and quiet envy. The masters watched him in the training yard with their hands tucked into the warmth of their sleeves, their faces unreadable, but their eyes sharp with the satisfaction of craftsmen who recognized a well-forged blade. Geoffrey himself thought little of praise. His mind was always on the next adjustment, the way a pivot could be lighter, a swing tighter, a thrust cleaner. He sharpened himself daily, not out of pride, but because something inside him whispered that his skill would one day be demanded of him. Some mornings the feeling sat on his shoulders like a physical weight. For 18 months his world had been small and orderly. Swordwork at dawn until his arms trembled, scripture after breakfast until the lines began to blur, prayers at dusk and again at midnight, the pattern steady as a tolling bell. He liked the structure, the simplicity, the comfort of knowing exactly what tomorrow would hold. But that comfort ended the day the bishop sent for him. Geoffrey's palms were damp when he knocked on the bishop's door. Bishops did not summon squires unless something had gone terribly wrong, or something had begun. The bishop sat behind a heavy oak desk, parchment spread around him like fallen leaves. His hands trembled slightly as he poured wine into 2 small cups. Age had thinned him, hollowed his cheeks, and carved deep lines into his brow. "Sit," he said. Geoffrey obeyed, perching on the edge of the chair, as though afraid to disturb the stillness of the room. "You are being sent on a journey," the bishop said. His voice held the softness of someone delivering news he did not wish to give. 3 monasteries, 3 trials. When they are completed, you will ride to the high pass and face Lord Khan, the Death Knight. The name hit Geoffrey like a blow. His throat tightened. Everyone knew of Khan. Children whispered about him in their beds. Travelers exchanged stories by firelight. Khan, the Death Knight who could not be slain. Khan, who had held the cursed northern pass for 6 centuries. Khan, whose blade burned with hellfire and whose armor shone black as midnight. "But, Your Grace," Geoffrey managed, "speak plainly." "Am I being sent to die?" he asked, the question escaping before he could gather courage enough to frame it more carefully. The bishop did not look offended, only tired. "We do not send our young to their deaths lightly," he said. "But yes, death is a possibility on this path. Still, you will be equipped." Geoffrey swallowed. "Then, I will do my best." The bishop sighed through his nose. "Your best will not be enough, not against Khan." He wasn't mocking him. The statement was simple truth. "Khan has faced dozens," the bishop continued. "Champions, princes, paladins clad in blessed armor, wielding blades quenched in holy water. All of them are dead." "Then why send me?" Geoffrey asked softly. "Why not send an army?" "We tried that." The bishop refilled his cup with steady fingers. 4 paladins led 100 knights and men-at-arms. Khan killed them all in a single night. He let the words hang in the cold air. Their bodies were stacked like cordwood at the pass. Geoffrey felt the room growing smaller around him. "Then, how am I supposed to defeat him?" "You are not meant to understand yet." The bishop pulled open a drawer and slid 3 sealed letters across the table. Each bore the church's sigil in deep red wax. "You will deliver these. Do not open them." Geoffrey reached for the letters, his hand trembling. And if I fail? Then you fail, the bishop said, and you will understand why. He held Geoffrey's gaze with quiet gravity. You may refuse. If you do, another will be chosen. For a moment, Geoffrey saw himself reflected in a polished mirror behind the bishop, young, unscarred, more boy than man. The reflection looked back at him with a question in its eyes. He straightened. On my oath, Your Grace, I accept. The bishop lifted his cup in a small, solemn gesture. Go with God, Geoffrey. You are going to need him. That night, Geoffrey lay awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining 100 armored bodies stacked beneath a starless mountain sky. The image stayed with him as dawn broke. At first light, he saddled his horse and rode north. Geoffrey reached the Hall of St. Rebecca 3 days after leaving the monastery. The structure stood alone atop a barren hill, a squat block of stone without windows, its walls thick enough to suggest that whatever lay inside was not meant to escape, or perhaps not meant to be disturbed. The air inside smelled of dust, parchment, and old candle smoke. It was quiet in a way that made Geoffrey aware of his own breathing. Brother Olash met him at the door, a tall man with narrow eyes and ink-stained fingers. He broke the bishop's seal, read the letter, and then looked Geoffrey over as though weighing grain, assessing whether the contents matched their container. You know where you ride when these trials end? Olash asked. To the pass, Geoffrey said. To face Khan. Olash's expression tightened. Khan the unkillable. Khan who broke the siege of the Keep of Tears. Khan who killed Jarrus the Savant in 14 moves. He studied Geoffrey. Do you know who Jarrus was? The greatest knight of his generation, Geoffrey answered. Olash nodded. He fought demon lords. He survived campaigns no other man would have. Khan killed him as though he were nothing. He turned away. Come! The hall stretched long and dim, lit only by a few thin candles. Tables overflowed with journals and records. Olash set a stack of parchment in front of Geoffrey. You will copy 10 accounts, knights of renown, each one dead. Copy every word, and every night read them aloud. So Geoffrey copied. He copied Sir Malor, who rode into the Blackwood and was devoured by the creature that ruled it. Dame Constance, who sought her father's sword in a sealed tomb and never came out. Lord Garrett, who challenged the Serpent of Mere only for his broken body to wash ashore days later. Ink stained Geoffrey's fingers. His hand cramped. His eyes ached. But he worked. At night, he stood alone in the center of the hall and read the accounts aloud. His voice echoed back at him, thin and uneasy. On the first night, a single armored figure sat in the nearest chair. On the second, 2. On the third, 3. By the 10th night, 10 spectral warriors sat silently before him, their armor reflecting candlelight in dull, ghostly glints. They did not move. They did not breathe. They simply listened. By the 20th night, Geoffrey no longer feared them. He feared the empty seat waiting among them. On the 30th day, he wrote the final accounts. Prince Halvan and his 20 paladins, all slain in one night. Geoffrey whispered into the cold air, "The Death Knight does not lose. No one has ever beaten him." In the morning, the chairs were empty again. Brother Olash handed him his reins. "The Order of Blessed Memory waits for you now," he said. "Go." The monastery clung to a frozen mountainside. Snow drifted around the stone steps. Wind shrieked through narrow passes like something trapped and suffering. Brother Captain Lebrun was waiting, broad-shouldered, scarred, missing an ear and 2 fingers. When he read the bishop's letter, his expression did not change. "Khan did this," he said, lifting his ruined hand. 15 years ago. Geoffrey swallowed. "You fought him." "I tried," Lebrun said. "My strongest strike landed against his armor. It did nothing, not even a dent." He turned and walked toward the stairs. "Follow." The rooftop was a frozen battlefield of ice and wind. Lebrun handed Geoffrey a bronze lantern. "One hand holds the sword. One hand holds the flame. If the flame dies, you fail." He attacked without warning. Steel clashed. Geoffrey staggered. The lantern swung wildly in his grip. Lebrun struck him hard in the ribs. "Khan is faster than me," Lebrun said. "You've died 3 times already." For months they fought in the darkness. Geoffrey learned to move with the lantern close to his chest, to shield the flame with his own body. He learned how to pivot, deflect, redirect, all while protecting a fragile circle of light. By the 7th week, he could match Lebrun's pace. By the 10th, the lantern felt like part of him. Then came the tower of ice. It rose into the storm, disappearing into the black sky. Geoffrey climbed, fingers numb, wind slashing across his face. At the top, he found the unlit lantern and fought to spark it to life. The flame trembled, but it lived. When he descended and collapsed at Lebrun's feet, the old knight nodded. "Good. Saint Eligius awaits." The Valley of Saint Eligius was a world of forges. Master Gorin stepped from the firelit gloom, one eye bright, the other clouded, 3 fingers missing from his right hand. "Khan took these," he said simply. "After breaking the sword I believed could kill him. He placed iron on the anvil. You will not forge a weapon. You will forge a cage for your lantern, stronger than steel, stronger than faith, strong enough to keep a flame alive in hell's own wind." Geoffrey learned the forge. He folded steel until it flowed like water, burned powdered duranium into the molten metal, ground dragon bone until its scent stung his nose and made his eyes water. The work reshaped him, heat splitting his hands, smoke scarring his lungs, exhaustion carving new resolve into his bones. On the final day, Gorin assembled the cage, a lattice of duranium steel and pale bone, fused together with impossible precision. "This will outlast you," he said. "Now go." On the 7th day of travel north, sunlight simply ceased. A wall of pure darkness swallowed the path, not night, not shadow, but a living thing that pressed against Geoffrey's skin as he stepped into it. His torch shrank to a trembling speck. The pass walls rose like black cliffs around him, narrowing into a stone throat. The warning tower appeared at last, its red lantern burning weakly, barely pushing back the dark. Before Geoffrey could knock, the door opened. An old man leaned on a cane, hair white, leg bent painfully. "Geoffrey," he said, "I am Serge, quickly, inside." The keep's interior was lit by dozens of candles, yet shadows pooled between the flames, untouched by their light. "The darkness here is wrong," Geoffrey said. "Aye," Serge replied. "The curse is older than memory." Geoffrey set the lantern cage on the table. Serge froze. "They sent you with that," he whispered. "They spoke of trials, of dead knights, of the long years Serge had spent alone holding the watch. Finally, Geoffrey asked, "What is my purpose here?" Serge nodded towards the window. Two burning eyes hovered in the dark, orange, steady, unblinking. Khan, waiting. "He senses all who enter his domain," Serge said. "If you go out armed, he will kill you." "Then why train me?" Geoffrey whispered. "To stand the watch," Serge answered. "To keep the lantern burning. A sword protects one man. A light protects everyone who sees it." A thunderous blow struck the keep's door. The horses in the stables screamed. Another blow, stronger. Youthful vigor surged hot through Geoffrey's veins, a drumbeat that drowned out reason. "I can win," he told himself, first as a whisper, then as a roaring certainty. He remembered the drills in rain and frost, the long hours when even the masters paused to watch him move. They had said he had no peer. They had said he was born for great things. And in the hollow places of his chest, that old hunger stirred again. Not courage, not yet, but the lure of glory gleaming like a blade in torchlight. Fame beckoned, the honor of ending the curse. The final entry in St. Rebecca's chronicle, carved beneath the long litany of fallen heroes, they would write his name last, for Khan would fall by his hand. He told himself he knew Khan's every trick, every angle of attack, every shadow step and cruel feint. If anyone could triumph, it was him. He steadied himself and stepped out to meet his destiny. Epilogue. Winter settled over the keep in the days that followed, a soft hush of snow and silence. Serge knelt beside a straw-lined pen where a litter of wolf-dog pups tumbled in a warm heap of grey fur. They wrestled, yipped, and tugged at his sleeves. Their small weight comforted him. For a moment, life felt possible here. Then the courtyard door flew open with a violent gust. Snow swirled inward. The pups scattered in alarm. A figure stepped through, the silhouette of a man dusted with frost, lantern glowing faintly in his hand. It was Geoffrey. "Come in, Geoffrey," he said softly. "Have some tea." "Make it a large one," Geoffrey said, "and sprinkle some cinnamon, won't you?"